For 3,000 years, she never blinked. For 3,000 years, millions of eyes stared into her face, and not one person on Earth knew what was hidden just beneath her skin. Then, inside a hospital in Berlin, under the cold hum of a medical scanner built to look inside living human bodies, something ancient was placed on the table instead. And when the machine finished its work, the room went silent. Because the face the world had worshipped for a century was not the only face inside that stone. There was another one underneath it, and it was different. What the scientists found that day would raise a question that historians still cannot fully answer. Why did someone, more than 3,000 years ago, carve one face in secret and place another face on top of it for the whole world to see? In the deserts of Egypt, in a place called Amarna, in the year 1912, a German archaeologist named Ludwig Borchardt was digging through the ruins of an artist's workshop. This was not a tomb. It was not a temple. It was the private studio of a royal sculptor who lived more than 3,000 years ago during one of the strangest and most rebellious periods in Egyptian history. Inside that workshop, buried beneath centuries of sand, Borchardt uncovered a bust, a sculpture of a woman, elegant, calm, almost otherworldly in her symmetry. He knew immediately who she was. Nefertiti, the great royal wife of Pharaoh Akhenaten, a queen whose name means, "the beautiful one has come," a woman who ruled beside one of the most controversial kings in Egyptian history, a pharaoh who tried to erase Egypt's ancient gods and replace them with worship of a single sun disk. The bust Borchardt found was unlike anything else recovered from ancient Egypt. The proportions were almost unnervingly perfect. The long, elegant neck, the high cheekbones, the flawless royal crown resting on her head like it belonged there before she was even born. There was only one flaw. Her left eye was empty. No pupil, no iris. Just a hollow socket where a matching eye should have been. For decades, historians assumed this was simple, an artist who never finished the piece, or an eye that had fallen out and been lost to time. But that missing eye would later become the first clue in a mystery far bigger than anyone expected. The bust was quietly shipped out of Egypt and eventually made its way to Berlin, where it disappeared from public view for over a decade. But when it was finally unveiled to the public in the 1920s, it caused a sensation. Newspapers across Europe called her the most beautiful woman in the world. Artists tried to copy her face. Governments began fighting over who actually owned her. Because the surface you see when you look at Nefertiti, the smooth, painted, flawless skin, is not actually stone. It is a thin layer of plaster and paint stretched over a hidden core. And for nearly 100 years, nobody knew exactly what that hidden core looked like, until scientists decided to look inside her the same way doctors look inside a human patient. This is where the story turns. In the early 1990s, researchers performed the first attempt at scanning the bust internally. But the technology of that time was primitive. The scanner could only capture thin slices of information every 5 millimeters, which in medical terms is incredibly crude. It was like trying to read a page of text through frosted glass. They knew something was under the surface. They just could not see it clearly enough to understand what it was. For over a decade, that blurry hint sat in the back of researchers' minds, unresolved. Something was down there. But what? Then, in 2006, a team led by Dr. Alexander Huppertz, director of the Imaging Science Institute at Berlin's Charité Hospital, one of the most respected medical research centers in the world, decided to try again. This time, they were not using outdated tools. They used a state-of-the-art medical CT scanner, the same class of machine used to detect tumors, fractures, and hidden abnormalities inside the human body. A machine built to reveal secrets the human eye could never see on its own. Nefertiti was carefully transported into the scanning room, treated with the same caution as a patient about to undergo brain surgery. And then, the machine began to work. Layer by layer, the scanner sliced through 3,000 years of secrecy. What appeared on the screen stunned the research team. Beneath the painted stucco surface, hidden just 1 to 2 millimeters below what the world could see, was a second face, carved directly into the limestone core, and it did not match the face above it. Let that sink in for a moment. The face humanity has celebrated for a century, the face on posters, magazine covers, museum postcards, is not the only face that exists inside that bust. There is another Nefertiti, hidden, silent, waiting inside the stone for 3,000 years. According to the research published in the medical journal Radiology, the differences between the two faces were subtle but unmistakable. The stone version beneath the surface showed creases at the corners of the mouth that do not appear on the outer face. It showed a slight bump along the bridge of the nose, a small imperfection smoothed away in the final, more famous version. In simple terms, the deeper face looked more human, more lived in, more real. The outer face, the one worshipped by millions, was smoother, more idealized, more perfect. Almost like a mask placed over the truth. Why would an ancient artist deliberately hide one face beneath another? Was the inner face what Nefertiti truly looked like? Wrinkles, imperfections, and all? And was the outer face a carefully constructed illusion, designed to present the queen not as she was, but as the gods, the public, or the pharaoh himself wanted her to be seen? Dr. Huppertz believed the differences were too specific to be accidental. In his own words to reporters at the time, until this scan, nobody even knew how deep the stucco layer went, or whether a second face existed underneath it at all. The working assumption for generations had simply been that the stone core was nothing more than a support structure, a rough skeleton meant to hold the outer plaster in place. But this scan proved that assumption wrong. The stone underneath was not rough. It was not a support structure. It was a fully detailed, carefully carved sculpture in its own right, hidden completely from human eyes for over 3,000 years. Someone spent enormous time and skill creating a face that was never meant to be seen, and then buried it beneath another one. This is where the story stops being simple archaeology and starts becoming something closer to a psychological mystery, because ancient Egyptian sculptors did not work like modern artists sketching for fun. Every royal image was deeply symbolic. Every curve, every angle, every proportion carried religious and political meaning. A queen's image was not just art. It was propaganda. It was a message sent across centuries to the gods, to the people, and to history itself. So if the inner face was more accurate, more human, more real, why cover it up? One leading theory suggests that the sculptor first carved the queen's true likeness into the limestone, following royal instruction to capture her actual appearance. But then, for reasons lost to history, the decision was made to soften her image before it could ever be displayed publicly. Perhaps age had begun to show on the queen's face, and the idealized version hid the passage of time. Perhaps the pharaoh himself, obsessed with divine perfection during his religious revolution, demanded an image closer to godhood than humanity. Perhaps this was never meant to be a finished royal monument at all, but a private prototype, a working model kept inside the sculptor's own workshop for training other artists, which is exactly where it was found. When John Taylor, a curator specializing in ancient Egypt and Sudan at the British Museum, was asked about the discovery, he offered a careful warning to the public. He explained that while the scan raises fascinating questions about why the features were altered, definitive answers may forever remain out of reach. The people who made those decisions have been gone for over 3,000 years, and they took their true reasoning with them into the afterlife. In other words, science can show us what happened, but it may never fully explain why. And that uncertainty is exactly what makes this discovery so unsettling, because it means the most famous face in ancient history might be, in some sense, a carefully constructed illusion. Not a lie exactly, but an edited version of the truth, softened for public display, while the raw, unfiltered original was sealed away in darkness. For over 3,000 years, we have been looking at a mask, and underneath that mask, a second version of the queen has been silently watching us the entire time. But the story does not end there. Because Nefertiti's missing left eye, the flaw historians long dismissed as accidental damage or an unfinished detail, has never been fully explained either. Some researchers now wonder whether the missing eye was intentional, tied somehow to the same private, unfinished nature of the workshop where the bust was discovered. If this truly was a working model, rather than a completed royal monument, perhaps it was never meant to be perfect at all. Perhaps it was meant to be studied, adjusted, and eventually replaced by an even more refined final version, one that may still be buried somewhere, undiscovered beneath the Egyptian sand. That thought alone should send a chill down your spine. Because it means the bust sitting in a glass case in Berlin today, the one millions of tourists travel across the world to see, might not even be the final, intended version of Queen Nefertiti at all. Might be a prototype, a study piece, a rough draft of perfection hiding an even rawer truth beneath its own hidden layer. And if that is true, what does the finished version look like? Did it ever exist? Was it destroyed during the fall of Akhenaten's religious revolution, when later pharaohs tried to erase every trace of his rule from history? Or is it still out there, buried, waiting for the next accidental discovery to bring it back into the light? Nobody currently knows. But the implications of this single scan reach far beyond one statue sitting in one museum. This discovery fundamentally changed how researchers think about ancient Egyptian royal portraiture. For generations, historians assumed that royal busts and statues were simple, direct representations, art created once and displayed as a finished product. But the Nefertiti scan proved that royal image-making could involve layers, revisions, hidden drafts, deliberate edits made specifically to shape how a ruler would be remembered by history. In a strange way, it means ancient Egyptian sculptors were doing something eerily similar to modern photo editing, adjusting reality, softening flaws, presenting a curated version of a person's appearance rather than the raw, unedited truth. The only difference is that in ancient Egypt, this editing process was carved permanently into solid stone, and then hidden so completely that it took a modern hospital-grade CT scanner and thousands of years of waiting to finally reveal it. There is something deeply human about that idea. Even 3,000 years ago, people wanted to control how they were seen. Even a queen worshipped as nearly divine could not escape the pressure to appear flawless. Since this discovery, the bust has continued to generate controversy far beyond the scan itself. In 2016, 2 independent artists claimed to have secretly scanned the bust themselves using hidden equipment inside the museum, later releasing the digital files publicly online. The museum denied giving permission for any such scan, and accusations quickly emerged that the files may have actually come from a server breach rather than an original scan at all. When confronted, one of the artists gave a strange, almost evasive response, refusing to fully confirm or deny how the files were obtained, only stating cryptically that it could have been a hack, a copy, an inside job, or even a hoax, without ruling out any possibility. To this day, the true origin of those particular files remains disputed. Then, after a 3-year-long legal battle using freedom of information laws in Germany, the official original scan data was finally released publicly under an open license. A moment celebrated by researchers and the public who had waited years to finally access accurate digital data of the Queen's face. Layer after layer, secret after secret, this single sculpture has continued to resist full transparency for over a century, which raises an unavoidable question. If a modern medical scanner could reveal a hidden second face after 3,000 years of silence, what else might still be hidden inside artifacts we assume we already fully understand? How many other statues, sitting quietly behind museum glass around the world, might be hiding something completely unexpected beneath their surface? We tend to assume that once an object has been studied, catalogued, and displayed, its secrets have already been fully uncovered. But Nefertiti's bust proves that assumption is dangerously wrong. Sometimes the most important discovery is not found through new digging in the sand. Sometimes it is found by looking closer at something that has been sitting in plain sight the entire time. Today, Nefertiti's bust remains one of the most visited artifacts in the world, displayed under careful lighting and heavy security inside Berlin's Neues Museum. Visitors walk past her every single day, admiring the same flawless face that captivated the world back in the 1920s. Most of them have no idea that hidden just beneath that painted surface, invisible to the naked eye, lies another version of her, a quieter version, a more human version, a version the ancient world was never meant to see. And perhaps that is the most powerful part of this entire story. For 3,000 years, an ancient queen managed to hide part of herself from the entire world, sealed silently within her own image, undiscovered until modern science finally broke through. It makes you wonder how many more ancient secrets are still out there right now, sitting quietly in museums, waiting patiently for someone to finally look deep enough to find them. Nefertiti kept her secret for over 3,000 years. The only question left is this: what else is still hidden, right beneath the surface, waiting for us to finally notice? If you made it this far, you are exactly the kind of person this channel was built for. Because most people scroll past history. Most people see an old statue behind glass and move on without a second thought. But you just spent several minutes uncovering a secret that stayed hidden for 3,000 years, a secret that even the researchers who study ancient Egypt for a living did not fully understand until modern medical technology forced it into the light. That curiosity you just felt, that pull to keep watching, to keep asking why, is rare. And it is exactly what this channel exists to feed. So before you leave, I want to ask you for something small, something that takes less effort than blinking, but something that genuinely decides whether stories like this one continue to get told. Hit the subscribe button right now. Not later. Not after you close this tab and get distracted by something else. Right now, while this feeling of mystery is still fresh in your mind. Because in a few hours, this feeling fades. Life moves on. And the algorithm forgets to show you the next hidden secret we uncover, unless you tell it to remember you. Subscribing is not just a favor to this channel. It is a favor to yourself. It means the next time we crack open a 3,000-year-old mystery, the next time we reveal a hidden chamber, a forgotten queen, a discovery that rewrites what historians thought they knew, you will be the first to see it. Not scrolling past it by accident weeks later, not missing it entirely because it got buried under 100 other videos. And while you are there, tap that notification bell too, because ancient history is not slow anymore. Right now, all over the world in deserts and underwater ruins, in forgotten tombs and dusty museum basements, researchers are scanning, digging, and uncovering things that have not seen daylight in thousands of years. New discoveries are happening constantly, and most people never hear about them until months later, if they hear about them at all. You do not have to be one of those people. Now, let me ask you something, and I genuinely want you to answer this in the comments below. If you had access to a hidden layer beneath your own face, a version of yourself the world was never meant to see, would you want it uncovered? Or would you rather it stayed buried forever? Think about that for a second. Because that is essentially what happened to Nefertiti. A private, human, imperfect version of her sat hidden beneath a polished public image for over 3,000 years, until science pulled it into the light without her permission, without her control, long after she had any say in the matter. Is that beautiful? Is that unsettling? Is it both at the same time? I want to know what you think. Scroll down right now and tell me. Not a quick emoji, not a one-word reaction. I want your actual theory. Do you think the hidden face was her true likeness, softened later for political or religious reasons? Do you think the outer face was the lie, or do you think the inner face was simply an earlier draft that was never meant to mean anything at all? The comment section on this channel is not just a place people leave empty reactions. It has become something closer to a community of amateur historians, skeptics, researchers, and curious minds who genuinely debate these mysteries with each other. Some of the best theories on this channel did not come from me. They came from viewers like you, digging through old documents, cross-referencing dates, connecting dots that even professional Egyptologists missed. So do not just watch this video passively and move on. Be part of solving it. And if this video genuinely pulled you in, if it made you feel something, curiosity, disbelief, even a slight chill when you realized that face had been hidden inside another face for 3,000 years, then do one more thing before you go. Share it. Send it to the one friend you know who is obsessed with ancient history, unsolved mysteries, or true documentaries like this one. Send it to the person who always says history is boring, because this is proof that it never was. Real history is not boring. It is full of secrets, hidden layers, unanswered questions, and discoveries that genuinely shocked the very researchers who study this field for a living. It only looks boring when nobody bothers to tell it the right way. You now know something that most of the world does not. You know that the most famous face in ancient Egyptian history might not even be the real one. You know that somewhere in Berlin, sealed behind museum glass, an ancient queen is quietly hiding a second version of herself that the modern world barely acknowledges. That knowledge is worth sharing. Now, if you're hungry for more mysteries like this one, I have more waiting for you. More hidden chambers, more secrets buried beneath ancient stone, more discoveries that made professional researchers stop, stare, and question everything they thought the Zopist understood. Click on the next video appearing on your screen right now, because trust me, what you are about to see next is just as unsettling as what you just learned about Nefertiti. Before you go, I want to leave you with one final thought. We assume the past is finished. We assume every mystery from ancient history has already been solved, cataloged, and explained by experts long before we were even born. But Nefertiti's bust proves that assumption wrong. She sat in plain sight for over a century, admired by millions, studied by experts, before anyone finally understood what was quietly hidden just beneath her surface. Which means somewhere else. Right now, another secret is sitting in plain sight too, waiting, unnoticed, until someone finally decides to look a little closer. Subscribe, so you're there the moment we find it.